So no job offer required. We already talked about that. You need to have completed a master's degree that's at least 1 year full-time from a publicly funded university in Ontario. So here it does have to be an Ontario school. Part-time studies may qualify if the program is equivalent to at least one full-time academic year. So if you did 2 years, but it was a full-time program and you did them part-time, then that might qualify. And you need to apply within 2 years of receipt of your master's degree. I believe the list, the site also have a link to all the universities that can award with these degrees, but basically in Ontario, it's mainly universities that can award a master's degree, and it doesn't have to be a 2-year degree, it could be a 1-year degree. Now, you could graduate from a master's in Canada, and you could be eligible under this program. You could also be eligible under the job offer programs, for instance, like the one for an international student, because that might qualify you for that as well. But the great thing about this one is that no job offer is required, and most importantly, no work experience is required. It's one of those few programs where you could have been a student all your life, you just graduated, and you could apply for permanent residence. So it's excellent. We'll talk about the fact that you need to be invited, so that makes it a little bit more competitive, but we'll take a look at one scenario later on. There's some residency requirements. You need to have lived at least 12 cumulative, again, not continuous, if you could have taken breaks for vacation or something like that, months in Ontario in the 2 years prior to submission. So you need to have been at least 12 months in Ontario, 2 years prior to submission. You need to be currently, if you're currently residing in Ontario, you need to have legal status. Or you could be outside of Canada. If you're somewhere else in Canada, you're not eligible. So let me break this down. So basically, you either need to be in Ontario with legal status, which could be now you're on a post-graduation work permit, or you switched to visitor, or you left and came back and you're a visitor, or you could be in your home country. But if you're residing in a different province, so let's say you did a master's at the University of Toronto, but now you're residing in Calgary in Alberta, you're not eligible, okay? And you need to intend to live and work in Ontario. And later on, we'll talk about how we normally document this, but you already lived in Ontario, you already studied in Ontario, so that's normally easy to prove that way. And you're not eligible if you register as a student at the time of application unless for the purpose of becoming licensed in a regulated occupation and working full-time in Ontario. So if you moved from your master's to another study, or you moved from your master's to a PhD, you can't apply under the stream. But if you have to do some CPA studies to become a certified public accountant and you're working at the same time, then you can, you'll still be eligible under the stream. There is an English requirement, which is a CLB7. Most people who have done a master's in Ontario would have a CLB7 either in English or French, and IELTS or TEF or CELPIP, the same exams that the federal government accepts within 2 years of the application. There's a new English test now that the federal government is accepting. I'm assuming Ontario and the other provinces are going to accept it as well, but right now, for now, I would say English, CELPIP or IELTS, and for French, TEF or the TCF. There's a minimum level of income or savings that you need to show, but I'll show you in a second how this is different from the fed. It's the same scale as the federal, same numbers, but different way to show it. And international students who were subsidized through a home country scholarship that has a return, that they have a return obligation, are not allowed to apply. Okay, so the minimum income or savings that you have to show is the same as the federal scale. So no difference there in terms of the number. It depends on how many people you are. If you have a spouse and a child, so you're 3 people, you'll have to show 20,371. What's great here is that you can include a job offer or employment that you have at the time. So let's say you don't have that money in your bank account. You have, I don't know, $500, but you already have a job offer, or you're working somewhere where they pay you $40,000 a year. That's fine. You can use that as evidence of your minimum funds. This is different than the federal skilled worker program, for instance, at the federal level, where you actually have to have that money in cash. Or it could be a combination. Let's say, for instance, you have a part-time job where you make $15,000 a year, and you have you need to prove 20,000, and you have another 6,000 in savings, then you can use a combination of those two. And it could be either a job that you have right now or a future job offer, which is, I mean, if it's in the near future. So that's great if they're employed. No concern about having to have this money liquid money in the bank.